Hello, I'm Lance Humphreys. I'm the Executive Director of the Mount Vernon Place Conservancy. Welcome to Flower Mart. Next up is Flowers and Fancies, giving us their take on flower arranging.
Hello, thank you so much to the Mount Vernon Place Conservancy for inviting us to be a part of this year's Flower Mart Design at Home. My name is Kristen Ciurca. I am the senior designer here at Flowers and Fancies. And we are a family-owned business that's been servicing Baltimore and Central Maryland since 1971. Offering same-day delivery and all 7 days a week. Today, I'm going to be walking you through how to put together our spring seasonal DIY kit. So if you order our kit online, what you're going to receive is a bucket of flowers, a vase, and a little piece of raffia wire. The raffia wire is important for how we're going to build our arrangement. So you want to fill your vase with water. Lukewarm, kind of like a little cooler than tub temperature, is the best to recut your flowers into. And we're going to start with a little bit of decoration. We're going to line our vase with some liriape, often called lily grass. It's going to come tied like so. So I'm going to trim off the bottom, hold it in your hand, and line them up so they're all going in the same direction. Put the hard end in your hand and wrap the grass around your hand like so. Then you're going to place your hand down into the water and let the grass go, fill the vase. Some of it wants to pop up, just keep pushing it down and adjust it around so you see the grass all up and down the sides of the vase. There we go. And it stays put more or less. The next step is going to be the foundation of our arrangement, and this is going to be with hydrangea. Now, if you've worked with flowers before, you know that designing in an open container like this requires some kind of foundation to put your flowers into. If you're working with a vase that has a neck, sort of like a traditional vase, that kind of creates a cross point for you to design into that holds your flowers up. When you're designing in something like this, you don't have that. So the flowers want to fall to the outside. So a trick that we use here is using hydrangea to create a grid, rather than using something like tape. And obviously in a glass vase, you're not going to want to use chicken wire or something like that. So we're going to start with these two hydrangea. Now, if you're sourcing flowers for yourself or you have a different size pot that you're trying to fill, you might need more, right? So the goal is going to be to have the first layer of hydrangea to cover the entire top of the pot. So I have two here, and I'm taking off all of these leaves so that it's nice and clean. Now, this part of the stem is the regular stem. These little bits coming off from it are called the lateral stems. And this is basically what we're using to create a natural grid for our flowers to go into. So you want to put these together in your hand and just sort of massage the blooms together. So it's generally sort around. Doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of flowers are going to go in on top of it. You want to manicure your stems, any wilted blooms, any little brown pieces, etc. You want to pull those all off so you just have nice, pretty petals. And then once you have it sort of round, you're going to take that raffia wire and you're going to go around the stems right at the tippity top, right where the lateral blooms connect to, or the lateral stems connect to the main stems. And you're going to go around it once or twice. I like to do it twice. It just holds it a little tighter. Pull your ends off to one side and twist it. You want to twist it tight, like twist it like you're tying a bag of bread. After you're finished twisting, if they move around or they wiggle around, undo it and twist it tighter. You want it to be pretty tight. And then you're going to trim off the ends with about 1 centimeter left over. If you trim it too close to the twist, it'll undo itself. So once you've done that, we're going to measure it to our vase and trim it to about the bottom third is what we're going for. And take care not to trim it right on one of these little nubs that comes off of the stems. Let me pick this up and show you. These little bits where bloom buds were or where the leaves have come off, if you cut it right at that place, they don't drink water as well. So you want to find a spot that's nice and smooth on the stem and cut it there at a diagonal to allow the hydrangea to drink the most water up. So I've measured and I've cut, and I'm going to place it into my vase. And you want it to sit on top, just like a little muffin top, kind of like that. And you want to make sure that all of your petals are on the outside of the vase. You don't want it to sit so they can get pushed down in there. You want it to come over the end. So again, just kind of spread it out so that it sits on top and it's pretty snug. If you put it in and your stems are so long that they hit the bottom of the vase and it wiggles, then you just want to take it out, trim it again, do it conservatively. You don't want to trim too much because you can't put that back. And these do drink a lot of water. So if it's too long, then take it back out, give it another trim, and put it back in until you get to the point that it sits snugly on the top of your vase, like so. So this is going to be the base of our arrangement. The benefit of using hydrangea that we've found over the years here is that then you don't have to stuff this huge vase or this huge opening with a ton of greenery. It lets you be a little bit more selective about the greens that you choose. So the next thing that's going in is these mini green hydrangea, and we're going to clean them the exact same way we clean the white ones. Take all of the leaves off, unless they're super duper pretty. Like for instance, this one has a pretty one up here. If you want to keep that on for texture, you can. But any of these pieces that are coming off lower on the stem, you're going to want to remove those because they're just going to get in the way of all of the extra flowers that are going in on top. So you'll have 3 of those. I'm cleaning those up, and I'm going to place them into my arrangement, sort of if you're looking at it from above, a triangle. Okay, so that's the way you're going to see it from all sides. And again, you want to measure it before you cut it. Beware of any of these nubs. You don't want to cut right on it. And in fact, if any of those little nubs are on your stem, you can trim them down so that they're flatter. And that's going to help you if you want to take your stem out to replace it, to put it someplace else in the arrangement. These will grab onto the other flower stems and pull them out. So the cleaner your stems, the better. And then we're going to cut that on an angle, and we're going to place it into the other hydrangea. So make a little space and just place it right on in. And while we're putting these in, we're putting them kind of around the outside. We're still building that foundation. So you want to put it in sort of at an angle. Now, not like a super exaggerated angle, because then your flower is going to fall out, and not straight up on top, because then they'll all kind of cluster in the center. Just sort of around the outside. Think about it kind of like spokes on a wheel or like a starburst, right? We want them to come out at that little bit of an angle, and we want all of our stems to start crisscrossing around where we tied those original hydrangea, and that's going to create a nest. And that's what we're going to put our flowers into then to hold them in place so they don't fall out in the container. So I'm going to do the same with my other ones. We're trimming on an angle. I'm going to place them in at an angle. And I'm tucking these in so that they're not quite pushed all the way into the hydrangea. This just gives a little bit more texture. So I'm going to trim and place. And, you know, if you are not really used to doing floral design, or you don't design that often, always go back to measuring to your vase before you cut the stem, just to make sure you're going to get that stem down into that bottom part of the vase, and you can ensure that then your stems are going to be in water. So we have this going now. So it's kind of like a textured muffin top. And into this, I'm going to add my foundational greens. So in your bucket, you're going to find, this is called salal or lemon leaf. It's not really like a showstopper, but it gets a lot of work done. We like to use it because it has a similar shape and color to the natural foliage on the hydrangea and on the roses, which we're also using. And it's on a nice hard stem, and it lasts really well. So you're going to, again, measure and cut. If you get like a crazy branch like this, you just want to separate it into pieces. And we're really only using the top part of it. It's just like sticking out in between the hydrangea, sort of like we took all of their leaves off because they didn't really work with our arrangement. We're going to add these back in to sort of take their place, just to keep the arrangement looking natural and having a little space. We're not really making a super duper tight modern look. We want it to look sort of spring garden style. So, you know, if you did want to do something with that more modern look, you would just want to kind of increase your hydrangea count so that you have a broader bouquet, around bouquet to start with. And then you can put your flowers directly into that without really using any greens. But what we're doing here by putting these in is not just sort of reinforcing that, that nest underneath, but it's also beginning to create the larger shape of the arrangement and the spaces that we're going to fill in with the following flowers. So I'm taking these larger leaves off the bottom. I'm just using the tops, and I'm putting them in between. Depending on how much you like, I would do probably at least 3 insertions of the greens in between the hydrangea, or in between the mini green hydrangea. And you can stop there, or if you really like the green, you want a little bit more, you can add it all in. So just sort of do it to taste. I'm just adding those in as I go at an angle. You can see it sort of filling around, again, like thinking like spokes on a wheel, coming out from that center point. to reinforce that nest underneath. You'll notice as you go through, sometimes, I mean, it's inevitable, some of the pieces of the stems or the blooms are going to end up in the water, and we'll clean those out later. At the end, I'll show you how to care for your arrangement, keeping it living as long as possible, and part of that is going to be keeping the water clean. So once you've filled your hydrangea with greenery to your taste, we're going to start with the flowers. I like to usually start with the larger ones first because they are the thing your eye goes to first. So we want to kind of place those around so that we can see the color all throughout our arrangement. And we are using these peach roses today called Kahala. And we love them here because they are a regular rose, but they kind of look like a garden rose. They have a high petal count, which is great. And they have a nice ruffly center. So they sort of open like a garden rose, which is nice with a little encouragement. You're going to want to take the outside petals off of your roses. These are called shipping petals or packing petals. And that's going to, again, help it open. I like to think of them as the outside of a Brussels sprout. You know, you want to take those off. And then you can just work your finger around a little bit gently, not to like actually bruise any of the petals. And you can give a little quick blow, like right in the center, and that helps pop it so it starts to open. And then these have a tremendous shelf life and they'll continue to open in your vase. So when we put them into our arrangement, again, go back to measuring. I'm going to do, since we have 5 of them, 3 around the outside in that triangular positioning and then 2 on the top. But when you're going to put your roses in, again, measure, cut on an angle, remove any little knobs on the stems or any thorns and any leaves. So you have a nice clean stem going in, and then you're going to go ahead and put it in to your arrangement on that similar angle that you put your greens and your green hydrangea in on. Again, thinking about all of these stems crisscrossing down here, making spokes on a wheel. It's going to hold all of our flowers up as we move forward. So if you have something that has a really pretty green on it, it's up close to the rose and you want to leave it on, you can. For the most part, these Kahala roses don't really have that. They have really long necks and their greens don't start until lower, so that would always end up down underneath your hydrangea. You don't want anything on the stem going into the water. So you want to make sure they're nice and clean. Again, that's going to help us with keeping our flowers lasting super long. And it's also going to help us take them out and move them around if we decide we want to replace them. So I'm going to put this one here. And then my third one in a triangle to here. Just cleaning it up as I go. And trimming and placing. And then we're going to do the 2 on top, carrying that color through to the arrangement. Doing all these guys off. And when you put these into the arrangement, you'll notice I'm not pushing them all the way down in there. Again, we're kind of filling in that space in between the leaves, not really sitting above the hydrangea, but we're kind of nestling the little bottoms of the rose into the hydrangea and allowing the remainder of the bloom to sit on top of the hydrangea. And that's going to help our roses open as well. If you push them down really far into the arrangement, even like slight pressure on the bloom will keep the petals kind of tight. So we want to have them with enough space on top that they have room to open. And then our next bloom in is going to be the spray roses. We like to include these in all of our seasonal DIY kits with roses just because we feel like it gives a really nice texture, so you just don't have one of the same thing, same shape moving around. And the nice thing about the spray roses is they sort of do a nice little placement of the flowers for you on the stem without you having to think about it too much. It gives you a little bit of in and out in your arrangement and creates nice texture. So we always like to use those. These are called Lovely Lydia, and you don't have to be aggressive about cleaning them. They kind of are supposed to look a little bit more fairy-like and natural. But if there are any ugly petals, just go ahead and take those off. And of course, the thorns, you want to make sure you trim all of your thorns off of your stem. Again, picking off any of these little knobs. And then sometimes I'll take my clippers and just sort of do a light, this kind of dealy. What you find with spray roses is sometimes they have those like very small, almost hair-like or cactus-like thorns that catch you by surprise. So if you run something sharp just over that stem up higher, that'll take care of those. So again, I'm going to measure. And since I have 3, I'm going in between my 3 roses that I placed in at the bottom. Again, going into that same angle. And I'm just going to kind of let them float. So I have one that's more tucked into my hydrangea. And then I have a few that are coming up on top, just letting the actual stem do the work for me. Don't have to be too fussy about it. Again, taking off all of my greens, trying to get some of these off. I'm going in between over here and doing the same on this side. So we can see all of that color all the way around. Sometimes you get one of these, I should mention, all of these have been pretty good, but sometimes you get one that has like a crazy long lateral stem coming off, and you're gonna have to take that off, unfortunately. So you don't wanna push that down into the water, into the vase. But if it is long enough to use separately in your vase, then you can go ahead and put that in as well, or just save it and put in a little bud vase. It's always a nice way to use that. So got those guys in. And then now we're gonna move into our spring flowers. We have these beautiful tulips. Love these so much. These are actually the Van Dyke tulips, so they're like a nice big bloom, and they open really beautifully on their own and kind of create a cup shape. Or if you want to make them a little extra fancy, if you wait till they've opened a little bit, you can turn their petals back. So this is called reflexing. We can also do it with roses, and it's the same kind of deal with the roses. You have to wait until they're a little bit older and they're a little bit softer and turn their petals back. So these, you let them open a little bit and then you can turn the petals back. So this is reflexing. You want to start with the outermost petals. Don't try to pull one from inside. And you can see it's kind of like they overlap as they go around. So the ones on the outside, I'm going to take first, and I'm going to put my thumb against the back part of the petal, and with my fingers gently flip it over my thumb. So it creates a little, like it's like a tongue sticking out, right? So then you want to come over to the next one that is on the outside of the petals and flip that one down. And I'm gonna do it again here on the one on the outside. So it gives it a different look. It's really cool, right? So you can leave it like this, so it's kind of partially opened and has a little bit of shape going to it, or you can turn all of your petals back like so. You can mix and match them, do some totally open, do some tight, or allow them to open naturally, do some kind of midway. But what this does is it creates a new focus, right? So what could just be a regular tulip, you're like, oh yeah, it's just a tulip. This makes it a little bit more interesting. And then as your tulip grows, it kind of gives it a cool shape also. So for this, I'm gonna have to sacrifice this leaf, unfortunately. It was beautiful, but it's gonna go too far into my arrangement. I'm gonna measure it, trim it, and place it into my arrangement. I like to leave as much of the greenery on the tulip as I possibly can, because I think that's part of the beauty of the tulip. But you can't, unfortunately, leave them all on and then have them either, push down into the vase or, push the other flowers out of the way. So as you're measuring where you want it to go, you might have to sacrifice some of the lower blooms. If you're doing a vase of just all tulips, I leave them all on because, I think they're beautiful. But these are great because they have these really pretty ones at the top anyway, so you see them in the arrangement. So I'm going to go ahead and reflex these the same way. There we go, just kind of popping them open, just making them cool. And then these are going to keep growing in your arrangement, which, bothers some people because, maybe you're like a perfectionist and you want everything to be exactly the way it was when you did it. And if you are that type of person, then you're just going to have to keep adjusting them. As they grow, maybe take them out, give them a trim, and put them back in where you like them to be. If you like that sort of natural quality of them sort of growing and being wild, just celebrate it and let it happen. Yeah. Obviously, they're going to grow towards the light. So wherever you place this, it's going to go towards the light. And I'm just placing these in all around. Again, some of them I want coming out from the sides here. So I'm putting them in at that like 45-degree angle that I was with the greens. And then I'm going to let a couple of them come up a little bit higher, more in the center of the arrangement. And by this point, we should have enough stuff in the arrangement that the stems will stand on their own. They won't fall to the outside. So when you place something in and around the top, it's not going to fall to the outside. So we have a little more wiggle room with how we put our tulips or put our next flowers in. So you can put them all around like this, or you can kind of group them together. That is your prerogative. With spring flowers, I do kind of like to keep them a bit grouped because it reminds me of how they grow naturally. So if you can have like one here and then one coming out from that, and then sort of one kind of come out this way, just so they're kind of speaking to each other as you're putting them through. And then next in, we're going to do our hyacinth. Again, it's going to grow as it goes, so you need to be mindful of that when you use it. I love these greens, and in a vase by itself, I would absolutely keep them on. But in a vase like this, it makes it kind of difficult to design with. So I'll take the greens off. So I have a nice clean stem. And you want to put these into your arrangement. Again, kind of measure it, but you want this whole thing to be seen coming out of the arrangement. You don't want to stuff all the pretty down into the arrangement. So you want to measure it and place it so that this is going to sit on top of your hydrangea and come out, keeping in mind that these two will continue to grow. Now, these are going to require a little bit of like tweaking. So guys, there we go, to get them where you want to go. And also keeping in mind, because there's so much bloom up here and a kind of wet, spongy stem, they want to pull to the outside. So put them into your arrangement a little bit higher than where you want them to land, because they're going to kind of tilt just with gravity. They're going to go to the outside. I'll put one in here. Oops. There we go. There we are. So you can see that blue through the arrangement. And then lastly, we have, well, not lastly, we have our anemone and our ranunculus that kind of have similar stems. So our anemone and our ranunculus, well, these are actually pretty straight, but sometimes you'll get the ranunculus that have a little crook in the neck, sort of like the anemone. And you just want to use them for what they are. Put them in. Sometimes they have these little guys around the outside that are a little bit older. You take those off. If they look good, leave them on. Try not to cut again if there's any like turning the spring flowers. As beautiful as the roses and spray roses are, they are kind of serving as the backup singers for all the spring stuff in this arrangement. So let your spring flowers kind of sit up on top. Same with these guys. Part of their beauty is their stems. So just let it be part of your arrangement. There we go. And put one on this side. And then we got our last couple of things. Now the billy ball. This is not particularly like a spring flower, but it is a super long lasting fun flower. And it is just like that perfect fun pop in an arrangement like this. And these have the nice long thin stems, and they're actually pretty sturdy. So you can put those in and just let them be wild. So I like to tuck one in and then put two out, but you can do them however you like. So this one I'm going to tuck in a little bit. And then I'll have one, again, measure, turn at an angle, maybe coming out a little wild to the side. You'll notice I'm kind of twisting them in because you don't want to like just jam it, because if you're hitting something underneath, you don't want to push that into the water. So just poke around a little bit and, you know, spin your stem a little bit to make sure you have a space to put it in before you push it all the way in and possibly end up contaminating your water. Okay, so I got my billy balls in. And then the last thing we're adding is just some finishing greens, right? So this could be anything. In this, we're using Israeli ruscus and this sword fern because it's the perfect spring green. So, and it's a nice different direction. So it gives, you know, rather than all of these rounds layered things, it's kind of a different shape. So it gives a little bit of visual texture to it. I'm going to use this first. If you want to try to break it up into a couple of pieces, you can. Usually I just use the very tippity top. And the reason that we're using it is just because it gives, again, a darker green and a different texture from that original lemon leaf that we were using. And plus, because it has this more vertical orientation, it does fill in between the flowers, which is nice as well. So clean your stem really nicely, trim, and just place in between where you feel like either maybe something needs a little bit of separation or maybe there is a space that needs to be filled, like so. And then if you want to trim up the bottoms and use them as well, you can. Just make sure you take the little nub off the center, clean it up like so. And then you have another piece that you can use if you feel like you want some more green in your arrangement. And you can do that with all of your stems. So I'll just tuck that in there for good measure. And then these guys, same thing. We're only really going to use about this much. Decide how much you want to use, how much you want it sticking out before you strip the bottoms. But let's say I want to use this much. I'm just going to clean that bottom part off and trim it, place it into my arrangement. I love the fact that these are more of like a linear shape. So I'm gonna let them kind of stick out a little bit and be seen. If you want them a little more tucked in, you can do that as well. And here we go. So in order to keep our flowers clean, We need to, and we'll keep our flower water clean and also keep our flowers living. We need to clean this water periodically. So the nice thing about the hydrangea is that you can take the whole arrangement out, right? So if we had taped the vase, we would be stuck with just keeping all of the stems in the vase. We wouldn't be able to recut them. We wouldn't be able to clean all of the water out. We would just kind of have to take it over to the sink, hold it and dump it, which is still an option if you're not comfortable taking all of the flowers out. But if you are comfortable taking all of the flowers out, put your hands underneath and let the bottoms of the hydrangea rest on the backs of your hands. And just gently pull it up and tighten up on the flowers as you go. Now, the grass does make this a little bit more difficult, so gotta tuck that grass back in as you go. And pull your flowers out. And you have a nice little bouquet. That hydrangea kind of keeps everything together for us. And then from there, you just want to take this over to the sink, give it a dump, put in clean, fresh water, tuck that grass back down in there, wants to come out. And if you have the hands or a helper and you can manage to do it, give your stems a fresh cut before you put them back in. And that's going to help them live longer as well. If you don't, it's okay. The most important thing is just having the clean water. So we're going to put those back in like so, let it rest, and then make your adjustments to get it back to how it looks. Like some of the things might have moved, and that's okay. That's a good opportunity too if you want to trim down your hyacinth or your tulips if they're getting a little bit long for your taste in your arrangement. Okay, so that is how we create our spring DIY. Again, it's perfect size for a coffee table or a centerpiece even. There we go. And there we go. And you can shop this. Our DIY kits are available on our website, as well as beautiful flowers pre-arranged for you if this is not what you want to be doing, and beautiful plants for your house and soon for your garden as well. And that's all on our website, flowersandfancies.com. We hope that you enjoy all the programming for this year's Flower Mart at home. Be sure to check the full calendar out on the Flower Mart website. Thank you so much for joining with me.